Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Real Me, Chapter 24. This is really a secondary chapter into Chapter 23, which started talking about man's responsibility in this world, learning Torah primarily. What is the meaning of learning Torah? In Chapter 24, he discusses the approach. It's called the approach to learning, which if you learn in yeshiva, which basically this book is made for people that learn in yeshiva for a long time, the Haredi sector and the yeshiva sector in America, you know, it's advocated to go into kollel long term, maybe even for life, or become at least a rebbe or a rosh yeshiva or a magid shir. This chapter is meant for these people who are going to spend a lot of time in the base medrash and have the many hours to sit and ponder the Gemara and to learn it be'iyun. What is the proper approach to learning? He says, I'm not going to tackle which is the proper approach to learning. There's different approaches out there. I mean, there's the Brisker approach, to making a hakira like that. There's other approaches. You look in the last generation, the Achronim, different approaches. They're making a hakira, or to maybe just reinterpreting words of Rishonim, or, making, I don't even know. To be honest with you, I don't know. I have my own approach to learning. I give it Ian Shiar on the Gemara, as well as Ian Shiar on Shulchan Aruch, and the Mishnah Yomi that I give. I have no problem learning Ian. I would say I'm probably the greatest Ian mind in this world right now, without an exaggeration, maybe ever. I don't think there's anyone who can do what I'm doing. Just to give Ksubo stuff, 71 we did today. I've given 70, Beis, it starts with 70 Ian Shiurim, Maseches Ksubos, and to give an Ian Shiur in 8 to 10 minutes every day is really, it's really like Superman. It's kind of hard. Plus, I give an Ian Shiur on Mishnah Yomi, and Ian Shiur on Shulchan Aruch Yomi, and I give it 3 Ian Shiurim a day. Most Rosh Yeshiva will give 1 Ian Shiur, maybe a Shiur Kloli once a week, some maybe twice a week. Some Rabbanim give an Ian Shiur, 5 times a week or something like that. For younger students, not on such a high level. I want to talk today about, I'm going to discuss what the author talks about. The reason he's bringing in this chapter is because he wants to talk about the problems that people have with analytical learning. The first problem, he says, is that everyone knows you're supposed to be learning being analytically, because the Gemara says there's Sinai and Oker Harim. Rabbah was Sinai. Rabbah was Oker Harim, and Rav Yosef was Sinai. And the Gemara says that Sinai is better. To know a lot of Torah is better. Oker Harim, someone who learns analytically, is also very good. You need both. And that's where it's developed the lexicon of Bekiyas. You learn Bekiyas and Be'iyun. A lot of yeshivas in the morning you learn Be'iyun, and they have to learn Bekiyas. Now let's just stay with Ian for a second. He says there's a problem with analytical learning. Some people get a Derech HaLimud, they get a way, a methodology of learning, and they use it. But others, they say they have to find something to Ian, because you can't turn the page in the Gemara. A lot of yeshivas learn very slow. And instead of letting the Gemara come naturally, you read a Gemara, usually you have to read like an Amud or a Daf of Gemara at a time, because that's how long a Sugya is. After you learn the Daf of Ian, or, you learn the Daf, you read through the whole Daf, and you have the whole Sugya clear in your mind, then you can start asking questions. You'll have natural questions that will come into your mind. But he says the problem is so many yeshivas, they learn 5 lines a day or 5 lines a week. It forces them. What are you going to ask a question on? You're asking forced questions, because of course you can't ask a real question, because you haven't seen the other 90% of the sugya. So, like there's a famous joke, they say, being a Baba Kama starts Arba Avos Nazika. So that, someone starts learning Arba Avos, no, Shalosh Avos, Arba Yaakov. Oh, Nazikin, right? They learn the next word, Nazikin. That's really what it is. When you learn 5 lines of Gemara a week, and you try to ask questions, you learn Rabbi Kiva Eger on the lines in the Gemara, and you haven't learned the entire sugya. And most sugyas are at least an Amud or a Daf, or sometimes even longer. So you have to learn the whole sugya at once in order to properly ask questions. And he says that's the whole point of Ian, is that the questions should come naturally. He brings a Rashi in Gemara and Shabbos that says, Rashi says, until you learn with happiness, gladness of heart, and go in the ways of your heart to understand what is in your heart according to your perception. Go with what your perception is. You're learning a Gemara. If something doesn't make sense to you, try to figure out, how to answer that difficulty. That's really, the correct methodology of learning. The second problem that people have is they always want to feel they must know the raid. He even calls it the raid. Right? If you don't know what raid is basically what most yeshivas will talk about on a specific sugya. The questions will ask, usually Rav Kiva Eger has a question, or there's a ksos or a nesivos. They'll say certain things about that. And the person feels he has to know these things that everybody else knows. And it could be someone who's learning it'll have a question that no one asked, or that very few achronim ask, or obscure rishon, or an obscure achron asked, or maybe no one even asked a question. You have your own chiddush. You're just so focused on what everyone else is saying. You're not focusing on your own analyzation of the Gemara. So he says those are the two problems. The two problems is that you're learning too slow, and you want to say what everyone else is saying. And the third problem he says is that, and he calls it institutionalized learning, is that in past generations, a lot of big Gedolim, Moshe Feinstein, he says, or Gershon Edelstein, who's biggest rabbi now, he had a brother of Yaakov Edelstein, I don't know if he's still alive. Their father, they used to learn by themselves, and they felt maybe it's time for them to join a yeshiva. So they asked the Chazon Ish, and he answered, "What are you lacking in your present situation? Right now, you're learning with independence. Why should you go to yeshiva and learn without independence?" I know Rav Gershon Edelstein now gives a shir in Panovich. I don't know how he personally learns, but that's what he says. He said Moshe Feinstein for many years, he used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and learn by himself till 7 o'clock in the morning. The Chazon Ish, spent his whole day, I think in his house he was learning the whole time. Learned for 10, 11 hours straight by himself. A lot of the Gedolim didn't learn the way we learn, He says, we have Sidorim, people go to kollels and learn first Seder with one chavrusa and second Seder with another chavrusa. He says there's an example in Lakewood where two younger light decided, yes, we're going to be part of BMG, the big yeshiva there, but we'll take the same chavrusa every morning and night, and we'll learn the whole Masechta from the beginning until end, and they learned with each other the whole day. And they finished the Masechta, and they were very happy with their learning. So he said that's also another problem over here. So what is the answer to these problems? Is there one answer? Do you need many answers to answer these problems? I want to quote what he says over here by Daf Yomi. Nowadays Daf Yomi has taken off. Not really in yeshivas. It really hasn't taken off in yeshivas or kollalim, but it's really taken off among the general Jewish population, the working population. It's really, this last Siyum Shas had, various siyumim, and the biggest one was 100,000 people in New York, New Jersey. So it's become a really big thing. There's a plethora of Daf Yomi Magidei Shirim, including myself. I give a Daf Yomi. I learned Daf Yomi. He says here, too many are pressured to go along with the crowd and learn a system they aren't fit. The Daf Yomi, in parentheses, Daf Yomi is one such example. It's not for everyone. To that I say, Daf Yomi is for everyone. This is what I truly believe. I believe Daf Yomi it has special siyata d'shmaya. It was started roughly 100 years ago, or Meir Shapiro. What it blossomed to from then until now is incredible. It's just been astronomical, the growth. I really believe this is the correct limud for not just working people, but for yeshivas and kollalim. Shas is so big, If you learn Be'in in a yeshiva, you can learn in yeshiva. I was in yeshiva, Rav Yaakov Friedman's yeshiva in Beitar. He has a unique mahalach where he learns an amud a day, which is half a daf a day, until they finish the Masechta. The problem is, now, first of all, an amud is half. I mean, if they would learn Friday and Shabbos, the amud, they would continuously learn the whole thing without doing chazara, the reviews, and things like that, and also having ben azmanim and things like that. Then technically they would finish Shas once every 15 years. But of course, you have chazaros, you have ben azmanim, you have, Friday and Shabbos are not included in the hesped, what you have to learn. So it ends up being that if you were to stay in Rav Yaakov Friedman's yeshiva for, I don't know, you probably have to stay there for 30 years. There are some people that stay there that have been there for like 20, 25 years. People really like that yeshiva. They can't leave. They like learning that style. They learn an Amud. They try to learn it as be'in as they can, an Amud a day. Um, it's a nice idea, but at the end of the day, it'll take you too long to finish Shas. You want to go through Shas a couple times in your life. Your life is not that long. Your learning is not going to be that long. How many times are you going to finish Shas? 4, 5, 6 times? It's a lot, and you have to go pretty quickly. You have to learn. So I think a Daf Yomi is a great thing. If I had my say in the matter, I think Daf Yomi should be shortened only 5 days a week. I think you should have a break for Shabbos, for Friday and Shabbos. I think Sunday is a great day for a lot of people in America. It's a day off. It's a great time for people to learn. So I think Sunday should be included, but I think Friday, getting ready for Shabbos. Even Eliyahu Navi doesn't come on Friday because of Tircha, of getting ready for Shabbos. Friday should be a day off. Shabbos should be a day of Shabbos Menucha. You're learning the whole week. Yeah, and the Ramah says you're not supposed to learn on Shabbos. So I really think that Friday and Shabbos should be a day off, especially for a Maggid share like myself. It's just relentless. You have Yom Tovim, you have to make it up. You have a 3-day Yontiv, you have to make it up. I give a video share every time. It's relentless. Even Zilbermans will learn. They take off for Tisha B'av. Tisha B'av, you have to make up also. I mean, it's crazy. But so if you do that, you finish once every 10 years. I think that's fair. You can finish Shas 3 or 4 times in your lifetime. You learn for 30 or 40 years. I think it's great. Some people live longer, learn longer. What's missing in Daf Yomi, and the reason that he leaves it out, he says Daf Yomi is not a good for everybody, is because people, two reasons. One reason, I think really the primary reason, he says because people don't want to push themselves. He's thinking people don't want to push them. People don't push themselves. They don't push themselves hard enough. And it's not hard to learn a daf a day, especially listening to a shir. Most people learn daf yomi don't learn it by themselves. They listen to a shir. They go to a shir. I'm giving a very clear shir in 25 minutes. All it takes 25 minutes of your day to learn daf yomi. It's not so much, and the accumulation of knowledge you get from just going through shas, you can't go slow. Shas is too big. You can't go slow. You don't have that opportunity in life. You have to cover all of shas. You have to cover ground before the ground covers you. I heard someone say. So the second problem I think the author has with Daf Yomi is the fact that there's a lack of Ian, which is basically what this chapter is talking about, analytics. If you started learning Daf Yomi when you were in high school, when you were, 14, 15 years old in high school, and you just learned Daf Yomi, you would never learn how to learn analytically, which is what the author already says himself at the beginning. He says, this chapter is not meant for young Bachram who are still learning how to learn. I believe that until the age of 20 or 21, you should develop yourself analytically, and from then on, you can learn Daf Yomi. Now, if you ask me the best way to learn analytically, I got this advice from Rabbi Yaakov Friedman. Basically, you have Tanoim, have a Machlokas, you have Merayim and a Machlokas. It's very simple. Just ask yourself, on what point, on what Nakuda, on what single point are they arguing? Now, you might say, he says Chati Nezek, and he says Nezek Shalom, or, so that's what he said, that they're arguing Chaz Nezek Shalom. Now you have to think of the underlying reason why are they saying what they're saying. It's okay to ask yourself why. I know some people have said why should be frowned upon. You should only ask what. I think Rav Chaim Brisker said that, but I don't agree with that. I think you could ask why also. We say in Shimon is Dorish time of the Kra. Man, the Rabban are not Dorish time of the Kra, right? You're not Dorish time of the Kra, but the sod, the drush is not, you don't go after the reasoning, but the sod, the real secret of the Torah is based on reasoning. It's all based on logic. It has to be, we don't understand the sod, but you can try, you can attempt to get there. And that's also ultimately the point of the analytical learning, is to understand the sod of the Torah. I'm revealing that to you in just Daf, the Daf Yomi share, and the Ian with Ben Sion share. I'm revealing to you some of those secrets. So when you're starting out, take Rav and Abaye and Machlokes, right? Adayim Shem Ochichos, having a dime, loving a dime, the Dharam we'll get to soon. What's the Machlokas? What are they arguing about? Just take it abstractly from the Sugya. Don't connect it to what, Atanya, the Brisa says this, and the Mishnah says this. Irrelevant. Take that Machlokas Abaye and Rav. What is the core Machlokas between them? And analyze it. Give us what is the Machlokas about? What is it centered on? Very simply, if you can make it in one sentence, what are they arguing about? One word, what are they arguing? 2 words, what are they arguing about? That's really the beginning. And the end of Ian is really what I give in the Ian Shiurim, is basically, how does the Psak Halacha fit into the rubric of the entire Torah? As we'll notice, right, Uh, there's a psak halacha, which is generally accepted in the Shulchan Aruch, the poskim. Most of the time, it's a little letter in the Gemara. The Masaras Hashas tells you we paskin like. Once you know you have a Abaye and Rava, usually Rava we paskin like a Rava. So now Rava says the halacha, right? Yadayim she'en mechilas lo having yadayim. Let's say so. How does that fit in to the rest of Shas? Like we learned in Maseches Meiser Sheni, we learned that hekdesh, as long as you have an haga, right? You don't have a minhag. Is in some derech of people to do it. You can assume it's hekdesh, even though when it comes to being mostly mammon from other people, taking out money, from another person, you have to bring a raya, a strong proof. When it comes to hekdesh, you don't. Okay, so now there's machlokas whether an haga is good enough for hekdesh or not. We paskin it is good enough. So that was the machlokas over there. You could ask the machlokas on a Kama and Rabbi Yossi in that Mishnah and Meiser Sheni. So now we paskin like the Rabbanan that it is good enough of a raya. So then you could ask yourself another question. Then you have a question: how does it fit into the rest of Shas? Right? Why is this different than Dinei Mamonis when it comes to Moshe Mamon from your friend? You need a raya. You need a strong proof. When it comes to Hekdesh, when Hashem's being Moshe Mamon from someone else, then he doesn't need a strong proof. And that is really the sod of the Torah, when you're able to figure out what is the difference, right? What's the difference? So, it's not so complicated to say. You just say, when it comes, usually a lot of times the question is the answer, How could it be? Yes, that's the proof. The proof is that Hekdesh, so you could still think about it more, right? When you see different dinim about Hekdesh, you get the Kachim, there's different types of Hekdesh, right? Hekdesh, Bedek, Abayis, Hedek. When you become familiar, that's why you have to be familiar with all of Shas. You really have to learn all of Shas. You have to learn Daf Yomi. I'm sorry. Tell you got to learn Daf Yomi. I'm not just saying I'm a Maggid Shir, because I'm not, I'm not at all a famous Maggid Shir. There's plenty of other Maggid Shir are more famous than me. But I think Daf Yomi is the answer to this. Start off, learn your analytics. Abaye and Rava, what are they arguing about? Rabbi Yossi and Rameya, what are they arguing about? And then, once you know the halacha, then fit it in to the rubric of Shas and ask that question. These are questions that should come to you. I don't agree 100% that you shouldn't look analytically, make up forced questions. That's really what you have to do. You have to force questions. And Abaye and Rav, what are they arguing about? You can extract it from the sugya. You don't have to get caught up in the nitty gritty of the sugya, right? Oh, this is not a good proof from the brisa because it's not a problem. Even though a lot of the Rishonim do that, they get into the nitty gritty of the Gemara. I really believe you can extract machlokas. That's not so important. Those tangential questions, how does it fit the brisa or not? Those could be proofs, right? There's a difference between the chakira, the investigation you're making on Abaye and Rav, what's their machlokas about, and a proof, right? If the halakha is not clear, so you want to bring proofs from the Gemara, and the Rishonim talk about which brisa or which statement of Amora makes more sense with the accepted halacha. So that's proof to your argument. If you want to argue about someone, your chavrusa, what the halacha is, it's not clear in the Shulchan Aruch and the poskim. So you want to prove is halacha like Abaye or Rava or Rabbi Yossi or Meir. So you can bring proofs from the sugya and you can ask questions. Then I agree, you have to see the whole sugya. And daf yomi, you get to get a chance to see every daf. Usually is about a sugya. Maybe sometimes two sugyas in one daf, but a sugya is not usually longer than one daf. So you have the sugya in your hands. You have the complete perspective. You don't have a half perspective, and you can make those chakiras, make those investigations, and find out what the underpinning machlokas is, and eventually how does it incorporate the shas. And if you need to bring proof, then you look into more nitty gritty of the Gemara and the Rishonim of how they deal with the problem. Sometimes Ian, and I want to say this last point about Ian, which I think is extremely, extremely important. And I will get a lot of flack if, Das Torah heard me say what I'm about to say. I'm going to say it anyway because I believe this. And if it wasn't for this, I would never get to where I am today, be able to give so many years shiurim. There's an accepted thesis in yeshivas and kollel among the Haredi sector is that you or me as contemporary Talmudist or maybe an achron or achrei achron is not allowed to argue on a Rishon. You're not allowed to say something. Whatever you say has to be in the words of a Rishon. It doesn't have to be every Rishon, but at least one Rishon. This is complete sheker. I honestly believe. I don't know where the source for this is. There's no actual source that says this. The Gemara does say that an Amora can't argue on a Tana. Has to find Tanaic source for what he's saying. If all the Brisas and Mishnayos go against an Amora, he can't do that. But why do we assume the same thing? A Rishon and Achron. These are made up words. A Rishon and Achron. Someone arbitrarily decided time Yosef at Cairo, he was the first Achron, and before him were the Rishonim. It's all arbitrary. We're making these categorizations, the Gaonim, the Rishonim, the Achronim, Achrei Achronim, contemporary Talmudists. I don't know. It's all sheker. There's a bunch of lies. Now, the source they quote for this is that, is Yeridas Hadoros. The Maharal talks about Yeridas Hadoros, and basically the source is an often quoted Gemara, or the Gemara, I think it's in Shabbos, one of the places, says, and the Rishonim were like Malachim, Anuk, and Bnei Adam, were like regular people. If the Rishonim were like people, we're like Chamorim, we're like donkeys. So Yeridas Hadoros, we can't possibly argue on previous generations, say something that previous generations didn't say. However, the answer to that is it's lies in the actual Chazal. It depends how you look at it. Like we talked about today in Shulchan Aruch, in the beginning of Malachim, we're not supposed to be Malachim. The Gemara says, we're not given to Malachei Hasharis. Human beings are on a higher level than Malachei Hasharis. They're considered Mahalchim. They're not considered Omdim. They can walk. They can make decisions. Malachim can't make decisions. They don't have free will. Humans have free will. They have a path to get to completion. Malachim don't. So so that's a mistake. So when the Gemara says that the Rishon like Malachim, it's saying the opposite exactly, right? They're the Bnei Adam. Bnei Adam are on a higher level than Malachim. And you know what's on a higher level than Malachim? Chamorim. Not exactly Chamorim, donkeys, but it means people who are preoccupied with the physical world, right? Mashiach is someone who's Rochev al Chamor. He'll be involved with the donkey, with the Chomrius. Be involved with the Chomrius, but he'll have control and shlita over when to use it, when to not use it. Physicality and materialism is an amazing thing, and that's the whole point of the Torah, to enjoy the world. The Torah lets you enjoy it because it makes you, instead of being a slave to the physical, it makes you sholet and controlling the physical world. I was reading an article on Mishpacha, I read the women's sometimes. Sometimes they have better articles than the men, about these women who are trying to detach themselves from smartphones. The addiction. Smartphones are addictive. They are. They're very addictive. Social media is very addictive. So to stay, some of them were saying we want to decrease our screen time. Yes, you should decrease your screen time. You should be present with your kids, with your spouse. But don't get rid of the whole thing. I think smartphones are a great thing, actually. They give you a lot of entertainment. In the palm of your hand, you have knowledge about everything in the world. They're really a great thing. They can bring you enjoyment, and if at least they're a distraction when time you need to be distracted. They're a good thing. They can overtake your lives. Yes, they can overtake your lives. I know there's a woman, she was reading news 24/7 during COVID, trying to tell her son not to take the vaccine, and he took the vaccine. Listen, people are heavily involved in news. News is depressing, to be honest with you. So it depends what you're spending your time on, but I don't think the answer to smartphones is say just get rid of them. The answer to smartphones is it's very hard, but to control yourselves, to know when to use it, know not when to use it. Of course, we're going to make mistakes. That's the point of tshuva. But the idea is not to detach ourselves from materialism. Materialism is a great thing. We're supposed to just be rochav al chamor. We're supposed to control the chumrius, be involved with the chumrius. Right? It's a higher level than Bnei Adam even. Right? Bnei Adam, people, there's a time in your life when you're making decisions, and a time of completion in your life where you're completed and you're involved in materialism and enjoying this world. Most people aren't zocha to this in their lifetimes, but hopefully in Moshe Mashiach we will discover this, and people will reconnect with the materialism and be able to enjoy the materialism. It's very hard to enjoy materialism. It's much easier to enjoy spirituality than materialism in this world. That's why people are so attached to spirituality, because it's easier to enjoy it than materialism. When you're materialistic, you got to work. Again, business will drive you crazy. Business, trying to make more money and you know what to do with. So at the end of the day, I have to say like this, that if anything, we're equal with earlier generations. And I think nowadays the reason being is because we have so much more knowledge of this world, and the understanding of the Torah is dependent on Derech Eretz, right? Amen Derech Eretz and Torah. If there's no way of the world, and we know so much more about the world nowadays than we did so many years ago. So our understanding of the world is better, and therefore understanding of Torah is going to be better if we synthesize the two. I think it's very important to synthesize Derech Eretz, to have a big knowledge of things about this world. It's very important to know about these things in the world, and then can understand the Torah better. So at the end of the day, I think at least we're equal to earlier generations, and maybe even better than earlier generations. And to say, I can't say a svara unless I find it in a Rishon. I can't argue on a Rishon is ludicrous in my opinion. Um, I'll never be accepted at any yeshiva if I say this. Every Haredi person will tell me I'm crazy and I'm a shugana, but there's no source for this, and it's critical that I remember many years I would just sit. I didn't learn Rishonim. I just read through the Gemaras. I didn't even learn Rashi or Tosfos. I remember I came to my Rebbe, Rabbi Yaakov Friedman, or when I was in my 20s, and I felt like I wanted to learn all of Shas in like 6 months. I just wanted to learn all of Shas. I gotta know all of Shas. He agreed with me, so I started learning all. I learned all Masechta, and then I just I got burnt out. I couldn't learn anymore. But so he said, I said, how much are you gonna do a day? I said, I'll try 7 daf a day. I'll finish in a year. He said, you're gonna learn with Rashi, right? I said, no. He said, you gotta learn with Rashi. And even though he gave me that advice, and he was the person that gave me a lot of advice, I didn't follow his advice. I'm happy I didn't follow his advice. Rashi is one of the Rishonim. He has an explanation. He's probably the most famous commentary on the Gemara, but it doesn't mean Rashi is right. Tosfos argues on Rashi a lot. Other Rishonim argue on Rashi a lot. He's just one opinion, just like Rav is an opinion, and Rameir is an opinion, and Rishonim have machlokas all the time. And it's okay to say an opinion that's not recorded in the Rishon, to be your own Rishon. I used to just learn Gemara, just learn the Gemaras, without Rashi and Tosfos. I just, if I had questions, naturally you have questions reading through the Gemaras. You read it a whole daf at a time. You're going to have questions, and you come to answers, and you think about answers, and you think about it analytically. And that's what he talks about, letting it flow, letting it come to you, let the Gemara come to you. That's so important, to let the Gemara come to you, not just, Rashi says this. Once you see Rashi, that limits your view of the sugya so much. Even Rav Yaakov Friedman, he used to tell us that you should learn a daf 4 times. You should learn it twice without Rashi, then the third and fourth time with Rashi, because it's so important. Even he agreed that seeing it without Rashi is so important, because you realize Rashi is not the accepted opinion. He's one of the opinions in the Rishonim, but doesn't mean all the Rishonim or any of the Rishonim has the correct opinion. You can have a pshat in the Gemara that trumps all the Rishonim, and a lot of times in my Shiurim, I disregard what the Rishonim say. A lot of times I'll bring in a question on the Rishonim and give my own answer to it. You're not bound by the Rishonim. If anything, we're on a higher level nowadays because we know more about materialism, we know more about the world, we know more about Derech, we're connected to the Torah. So don't get discouraged. My advice to anyone learning Torah, starting out to learn Torah, I gave you advice on how to learn analytically. Basically, finding the machlokas, underlying machlokas, applying it to the rest of your Torah knowledge, and if you need proofs to one of the sides, learning, the nitty gritty of the sugya, the question is Rishonim and Achronim, trying to bring proofs, which one makes more sense, and on the correct reading of the Gemara, back into the Gemara, which one makes more sense. But let Gemara, learn a daf a day, let the Gemara come to you. Any questions you have in the nitty gritty, the Tosfos and the Rishonim, don't be afraid to give your own answers. And when you start giving your own answers, you'll have much more freedom analytically to come up with new ideas and new chidushim in the Torah and answer so many other questions that a lot of Achronim were still bothered by till this day. They never were able to answer. But if you come with your own focus, you're not bound. You're not tied down. You're not in Mitzrayim. You're not bound by the Rishonim or the Achronim. You can say your own pshat. Don't be afraid to say your own pshat. If it doesn't make any sense, you have to, try to figure out a pshat that actually makes sense and stands ground. And if you're trying to force something and say something which, doesn't make any sense and holds little weight and really seems to be disproven by the Gemara, that's what you have to focus on. The Gemara and the Mishnayos and the Gemara are not saying what you're saying. Don't force your pshat. But if you have a lot of questions on the Gemara and you give your own answer, that's 100% okay. I really believe people should be free thinkers, not just free from kollels and learning it by themselves in the base medrash at home. You should be free thinkers. Don't be bound by the Rishonim and Achronim say, and you'll come to many great chidushim. And if you have a problem with that, just listen to my Shiurim, and you can hear some ideas I say, and maybe learn yourself, from my Shiurim, how to be a free thinker, how to give your own questions, how to give your own answers, and apply them into the Derech Eretz, the life that we have nowadays, and then you'll understand the Torah and how the Torah fits into our life, and that'll be the true Torah, the Soda Torah, and yes, Darshinan Sojal Torah. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.